Here's a tweet from Kevin in Michigan. Which Republican members of Congress said they won't show such disrespectful behavior should be noted? I'm making a call. David Wellna.
Well, it was Joe Walsh, who is a freshman Republican from Illinois, Tea Party backed, kind of a rabble-rouser in his own right. He voted against the debt ceiling package that his leader had endorsed. And he said that the House is actually going to be meeting starting Wednesday evening. He's going to turn around and fly back to Illinois on Thursday evening rather than attend the joint session. Now, it's not unprecedented for members not to attend a joint session. Some of them hardly ever do. Ron Paul, one of them. But to make a big show of it and announce it to everybody, that's something else.
Here's a comment from Phil on Facebook. He says President Obama may offer tangible ideas in his job speech, but his biggest problem has been an amorphous presidency, something akin to a ship without a rudder. Its propellers are turning, but the craft is moving in whatever direction the wind seemed to push him, which ends up being nowhere. Michael Scher.
I agree that is one of Obama's biggest problems right now. He has to be able to make the case in a re-election next year that he is the guy to move the country forward. And to the extent that people don't see him as either a strong leader or someone who has a clear vision for doing that, for pushing the country forward, he's going to have a much harder time making that sale.
And certainly the public opinion polls in the last month have begun to document not just the decline of Congress, which has got an approval rating of about 12%, which I think ranks them somewhere near us journalists, but the president is now around the low 40s. But the leadership number had held up for him for a while, and that has dropped, I think about 10 points. And Michael's right, that's a really important number when you're running for re-election. And that sense of drifting is very prevalent among Democrats in particular, and they've been disappointed by his performance, and they do feel like he's been pushed around by the Republicans. So there again, you just start layer upon layer, it all goes to leadership, and that, I think, is why the self-inflicted wound over the speech this week just sticks and adds another ding that they certainly didn't need to bring on.
All right, to Plymouth, Massachusetts, Rod.
Hi, Diane, and hi, Mr. Scheer. I read your Time article on how the Obama team is looking to history for some guidance here, and I could see that they are somewhat optimistic after learning some lessons from the 1936 election with FDR. I teach AP US history, and we cover that period pretty closely. And I think they're missing a really important point. And FDR had to deal with a very aggressive opposition from the right, just like Obama. But FDR had the hearts and minds of the American people on his side, and that seemed to immunize him from these vicious attacks. And Obama, not all his fault, but for a variety of reasons, he just doesn't enjoy that same support. And that's why I don't think that this jobs proposal is going to get much traction at all either.
Just to recap for the other listeners, I have a story this week in Time Magazine about a unannounced retreat that Chief of Staff Bill Daley had at Fort McNair in June, in which he invited the historian Michael Beschloss to come in and talk about how presidents in the past have won re-election with unacceptably high levels of unemployment. And Beschloss's message was, there are two presidents who have pulled this off in the last century, FDR in 1936, Ronald Reagan in 1984, and that both followed very similar strategies. They argued convincingly enough that the economy, though bad, was improving, and they argued that their Republican opponents would actually make things worse. You're absolutely right that there are enormous differences between what Obama faces now, what FDR faced, and what Reagan faced. One of the biggest ones is that both Reagan and FDR had economies that, even though they were bad, were actually improving at far quicker rates than Obama's going to have. And the White House's lesson is not to say, oh, we can just do what FDR did. It's a little more distant. It's that those are our two priorities. We have to figure out a way to make the case by the next spring that the economy is not stuck in neutral, and we have to define our Republican opponents as people who aren't going to move forward. But you're absolutely right. I didn't mean to suggest in that article the White House is just saying we are just like FBI.